Welcome to another edition of the Paul Stefan Show. And today, we will be having a gentleman who has very interesting professions or avocations that he does, helping to save local, small, and family-run cemeteries, as well as a paranormal investigator. And we want to welcome Big Jim Jones. Hi, Jim.
Hi, Paul. Thanks for having me on.
Good to have you. Now, the first thing we noticed recently, seeing you pop up in some Dan Bell videos.
Yeah, Dan Bell is a friend of mine. We go out to a lot of historic locations in Baltimore City, and we go in there and we try to document a lot of these locations before they fall to the wrecking ball or to vandals or God knows what else will happen to them. Many of these historic locations, the architecture is beautiful. My passion is photography also, and I go in there and they capture everyday life that would have happened back then. The people that worked in these locations and lived here in these locations. There's a story to tell with that.
Okay, because we wonder where'd you get into those pictures? Because there are other videos you weren't in there with him, and you seem to be kind of in the background there.
Yeah, there's certain ones. Actually, how I met Dan was through my wife. He used to have an internet radio show, and Dan has a very colorful type of humor. I'll put it to you that way.
Okay.
And he's a character. He definitely is. Yeah. Got a heart of gold, but he is a guy that loves to go out there and do photography and videography. He had done some things with my wife, and he started with the Dead Mall series. He started going out there to like to the Fredericktown Mall, or when Owings Mills Mall was closing down, and we went out there and we did a before and an after, and just going around and just documenting a lot of these places before they go demoed. He finds some interesting places to go into. I can put it to you that way, and but a lot of it is fun to do with him. He's a riot to go out there exploring with. but a lot of those places that we went into there, some of them have fallen under the wrecking ball, and usually his videos are the only ones that really captures what these places were all about.
Well, that's great, saving history for us.
It's true.
Now, speaking of that in a different way, how did you get involved in, or what was your interest in cemeteries? Where'd that come from?
What started with me was going out with my family. We would go out every either Easter or Christmas, and we'd place flowers. And my mom being from West Virginia, we would go down, and they were those cemeteries there were small, up on mountainsides, and you literally had to grab tree by tree to go up to a lot of these places, and they weren't maintained because they were long forgotten. But at least through the kind of like doing your genealogy, you try to trace where your ancestors are, and that's how that got started. And we would go down there and place flowers. We would go up to certain places and clear out so other family members could go up there, and that's where it all started. And then when I started with doing a lot of stuff for YouTube, what started with me was there was one cemetery in particular over in Perry Hall, which I found out through my working experience over there, that was sitting behind dumpsters, and it was a lot of these graves date back to the mid 1700s. Wow! And some of them were tied in with the Goff family that started at Perry Hall.
Okay. And
it's in an apartment complex, and seeing how they covered all that over and doing the research on that, actually found out that there was a defender of Fort McHenry buried there, as well as another War of 1812 veteran. But then problems happened later on, and then once I got that, and I started putting up on YouTube, and then there was other cemetery preservationists that actually got that same video and started putting it on their websites. And it's a long way since I had that cheap little camcorder from Radio Shack. So
I bet. Because I know those films, are you still doing them? The Cemetery Chronicles?
Still doing Cemetery Chronicles. There's going to be some new ones that will come out in the next couple of months. I'm working on a project from one up at there's a church in York, Pennsylvania that they're moving graves out of to expand for the Yorktown Hotel taking over the annex of the old church up there, and many of those graves date into the 1700s as well.
Wow.
So they had to disinter them, reinter them in another cemetery.
Okay.
So I got there before they started doing demolition and started taking the photographs up there with that one, and that's still a work in progress.
Okay. So this is what I'm talking about, your families, where you got the interest to focus on these family-run cemeteries, these small community cemeteries that many of them are forgotten. How do you go about finding them, or do you find out that they exist or that they did exist? I mean, like, how do you know where to go to?
Well, there are some I do research on. I'm a find a grave volunteer.
Okay.
I do a lot of transcribing of headstones. I also do family photographs and put them up there on memorials and such. Also work with billiongraves.com, which is another site that you get GPS locations and go to where these cemeteries are located. So I would go on to other volunteers' pages, and I would also look where they did their research, and there might be one or two headstones they may need to go back and take photographs of. Well, I'll go back and I'll do the whole cemetery, gravestone to gravestone, and you wear out quite a number of SD cards. When you're doing a lot, and of course it takes a toll on your back too, but it's well worth it. I do all of that also through word of mouth. People will tell me that there's cemeteries that's around a certain area. Well, we know where a couple of headstones are, and people who have seen the YouTube series of Lost Maryland and also of the Cemetery Chronicles, they'll contact me and they'll say, "Well, I know where a cemetery is, and we're worried about these kids breaking in there and getting into the headstones and doing other things," and then I'll go out there and I'll start doing the groundwork, and then I follow up usually with a local politician in the area saying, that this place needs to be preserved. I mean, there is some things that you need to take care of.
Oh, good. I mean, you ever look at, like, for example, old maps or things, and say, "Oh, look, they said that there was a cemetery there, and I'm going to go out and see what's there now."
It's true.
You've done that.
I've done that. The one in particular is what they call the Poor-Cocky Family Cemetery. Okay. They were the ones up there off of Falls Road and West Joppa. There was a cemetery up there behind the Green Spring Station. Was a Green Spring development that's up there with doctor's offices and such that Johns Hopkins has. You would never know there was a cemetery there. And through old Baltimore County land records, and also through there was maps and there was other things that pertain to the tavern that once was up in that location. The Poor-Cockies that operated that, and let me back up a little bit. The Rich Cockies are the ones who were moved from up there on Padonia Road over there to where, behind where the Genstar has or Lafarge has their quarry up there in Cockeysville, and they were still related. And
that's the Rich Cockies that founded Cockeysville,
right?
Okay.
And the Poor Cockies are stuck down at Torrance Towson.
Okay.
And to go in there and find that, and it was I'm actually come up with a friend of mine who deer hunts in that area. He said that I went up there and I looked like a headstone up there, and I'm like, "Where's this location?" And he gave me the general directions. He says, "Well, you have to climb this hill and you got to go down here." And so one weekend, I only go out there during the winter because it's a lot easier going through all this overgrowth and assorted nasties. And I went out there and started climbing, and I went up there and I'm looking around and I can't find this. Oh. Well, something happened where I saw a road that came down behind this hill. So I decided, well, I'm here. I might as well go ahead and make the most of it. So I climbed down the sharp embankment, went out on this little dirt road that went back, and it looked like it was a family where they dumped off a lot of their scrap metal. And I saw an old Norge refrigerator sitting back there, and different things. So I decided to keep on walking, and it's right along behind this cornfield. So I kept working my way back, and as I got back there, all of a sudden I saw this one headstone with the crown on top of it. Ah. And that was right there. I mean, I'm like a kid in the candy store. I started running over there, running through this little stream that was nearby, and got back there, and there's Revolutionary War soldiers buried back there, War of 1812 soldiers. And but it needs a lot of cleanup. But I'm still trying to work with the property owner and contacting them and trying to work with them, since they have where you have a place where you can actually pull into to where the cemetery would be, but you have to go through their fields and that. So I want to make sure to try to cut down on any kind of transgress and egress to the property itself, as make it as small as possible.
Now, some people would say, okay, so why bother? Why care about these cemeteries? Mm-hmm. What would you say to that?
It's history. Mm-hmm. A lot of people, if you do your genealogy, some of the best information on these souls that passed before us are actually inscribed on many of these headstones. Many of the headstones actually have small cameos. It may have a photograph, the only known photograph of that person that died. And including with the ones up there at the Cocky Cemetery, they actually have the person's rank and the unit that he was with during the Revolutionary War.
Terrific.
And but all that's lost. I mean, you have people who write books about certain units of the military, but all of a sudden nobody knows whatever happened to these soldiers, or some of these other individuals. And so you're a documentarian, you're a historian, you're researching everything, and then you present it to the property owner, or you present it to people who are into historic preservation to try to raise awareness and hopefully bring some help to these cemeteries.
Jim, tell us a little about the story of the Westview Cemetery.
Well, Westview Memorial Park is a cemetery where a lot of indigents are buried. It's also a large African American cemetery that dates back probably into the 1930s or so. What I've been able to gather so far. Mm-hmm. As when they were constructing the Baltimore Beltway, they actually built over part of it. Wow. And the sand barrier is one wall that comes down behind it. On location, they actually have a crematorium there, which they stopped using about the early 1990s. And there are actually some ashen remains that are still within those cremators.
Really, cremains are still there.
They're still there. Mm-hmm. And it's been used as a dumping ground. The one video that I shot there, and I've done some live videos from there as well. There, alongside of the crematorium, there are piles and piles of veterans' headstones that were never placed.
Wow.
Many of the graves have never been backfilled in. There are times when you walk through there, it looks like a minefield because it's 2 to 3 feet deep, and you're stepping on top of the caskets literally, because there is no vaults there to be able to reinforce what was taken out.
They're coming up.
And actually there was one handle that was actually found several years ago by someone who was walking their dog there, and actually there was a handle from one of the caskets that actually poked up out of the ground. There were some volunteers that will go over and cut the grass. A lot of times with the local, there's a senior citizen apartment complex that's there, and they've come over and they've done grass cutting there as best as they possibly can without disturbing the graves. But there are many veterans that are buried there. There was the latest one that I was able to document so far was in 2007. But when Spring Grove stopped doing a lot of their burials, they were taking basically they were wards of the state with no relations to come back and take these remains and give them a proper burial. They would take them over to the Westview Memorial Park for cremation. And many times the ashes themselves would be taken and transferred to Springfield State Hospital, where they would bury just bags of these cremated remains. Mm-hmm. And but this cemetery is in decrepit condition. It's actually owned by the March Funeral Home conglomerate to this day.
To this day, and it's still neglected.
And it's still neglected. The crematorium was wide open when I went there. The door was wide open. It's been used as a shooting gallery for drug addicts. It reeked with human filth. Trash was everywhere. There's rodents running all through this, and the two cremators are sitting there. And I actually talked to one of the former caretakers, and when he worked for the group that was operating at the time before March took it over, things were so bad that they actually went down to Baltimore National Cemetery in North Bend, which is just below Catonsville, and would go and get last year's grass seed to cover the grass in certain areas over Westview.
And there's no way to get political involvement in this case?
Unfortunately, our county councilman just says that there's nothing they can do for anybody. It has to be brought forth by the those buried there, the families will have to,
The descendants.
The descendants will have to start picking up the baton and has to go through with it. But simply there's for the county to come in there and to do this, they can't come in there on their own. They have to be through the families. So
because I guess since they say the March funeral homes own it, it's private property.
it's still private property. Yes.
Right. And it's nothing, no laws there like, if you let your own private property, your home, run down, the county can do something about it.
It would have
But
to
they
take-
can't do it with the cemetery.
So with a cemetery like that, and even with the crematorium
Being open like that.
being open like that, and and the only thing they can send them for is the open garbage, the smells that come from there, or have them to go back and actually seal this thing up better than what it is. It should be bulldozed.
Yeah.
Both these cremators will be over $100,000 a piece. Just we're looking at 1990
Right.
figures
Right.
for them to build new ones. And for these right there, all the pipes in there is all totally worn out. I mean, there's rust holes everywhere. I mean, they would never be able to use these. But it's kind of a slap in the face and a dishonor to many of these people.
Veterans.
Even veterans like that leave their headstones just laying in piles and not put on properly on the graves. And also someone's ashen remains are still inside the crematorium and inside the ovens. Both ovens.
And this is, clearly, there's no laws, unfortunately, but it's disrespect to the dead.
It is.
And that's
It
terrible. Now, of course, here locally, we also have the Corsi family cemetery that people can't see necessarily. And talked about earlier about moving. That was a family graveyard that was moved where it is today. And you're familiar with this cemetery. I know you've done at least one film on it.
I did that, and I didn't gain access to it at the time, but thanks to all of you and through your help, I was able to get in there and get some other photographs up close. But it's an honor to see that a company, that Westinghouse, took it upon themselves to honor the people who had the farm there before the defense plant, to actually give them the honor and actually move their family and put them in a proper place. And it is a beautiful cemetery in the middle of an industrial type place where it is, and as busy as it is over there. I mean, it's kind of a quiet little corner.
And we were lucky in the sense that, as you said, in this case, early 90s, community got involved as well as the Boy Scouts to save it and put the headstones up because it was in bad shape. And then there's a man that just took it on his own to do the caretaking and mow the lawn. And he's getting old and wants to stop doing it, but we want to see if we get somebody else who can pick up the task or get the community to say, we'll all pitch in. But it's a nice thing about some of the earliest families of the Lansdowne area that that cemetery was preserved. And like what you said, it's a good tip to the hat to Westinghouse to doing that when so many other places, like possibly, again, my partner brought in, the Link family cemetery has disappeared. And we think possibly because some other entity after Westinghouse may have just plowed it under.
Yes. And there was one that I've been trying to find also up in the northeastern part of Baltimore County. It was his family cemetery. And that's actually had one where there were some early photographs of the headstones where that cemetery was. And that's been, what they did was they pulled the headstones up and built over top of the graves. So that's lost to the annals of time like that. And there were others that go into that. You have the IMAX movie theater in Towson, the Towson Schmuck Cemetery, and actually I'm distantly related to Nathan Towson, who's his sister is actually buried there, Mary Catherine Schmuck, and they operated the Bosley Hotel up in Towson, where the roundabout is,
like Bosley Avenue,
and Bosley Avenue named after, and so the cemetery up there, I was up there. I documented it before I did a nocturnal video of the Towson Schmuck Cemetery, and also did the day work. And there was I was lucky enough to get on Channel 45 News locally here in Baltimore. And what happened was that the day it came out, I was traveling down, just stopped by to take some other photographs to document further deterioration of the cemetery. And there was a cameraman that was there. And he was shooting a video, and he saw me pull over across from it and was taking pictures. And he come up and he asked me, what's behind this honeysuckle? It was all grown over. And I said, well, it's a cemetery. He says, "Did you hear what went on today?" I said, "No." And he just came from a news conference where the Baltimore County executive and the Cordish Company came out. They were going to build this IMAX movie theater in Towson.
Right.
And he showed me the plans, but the cemetery wasn't on the plans.
Oh.
And he said, "Would you be willing to come back and be interviewed about this?" And I said, "Most certainly." And it was after that is when they started to, once it reached the public, that the public got interested.
Good.
And then what now? You go up there to the IMAX movie theater, and now they actually put up a new fence. They cleaned their headstone up, and they have a plaque out there recognizing that the cemetery existed.
That must be the one I was thinking of, because I saw something in the news a little while ago, a year or two ago. But I thought more like when it would cross from the Towson Mall, and I think they said it's one of the Towsons were there. Towson Brother, I think a Towson male, and it's a small little cemetery.
That's the one there with
That's the one I'm talking about.
Right there around Virginia Avenue and
that's the
Shealy.
Schmuck Cemetery.
The Towson Schmuck Cemetery.
And it has one of the Towson brothers or Towson people.
And his sister.
And his sister, that somebody had a tavern or something. Yeah. So that was it. So I think part of it, like you say, the key, and it's come up a couple times, is getting community involvement.
Yes.
And how do you get people to care?
Believe it or not, there's a lot of people who do care. I mean, there are a lot of people who love history, and they love to hear stories about many of these colorful individuals. When you take them to a place like, you go up to Prospect Hill in Towson.
Okay.
That's where Divine's buried, who's from the John Waters movies.
Oh yeah, Divine, sure.
And so once in a while, people will ask me, "Well, where's Divine buried?" And I'll take them up there, and you can't miss it. It's covered in lipstick and has other makeup that's put out there.
Interesting.
But but imagine that cemetery not being cared for and maybe neglected. Many of these famous people, there are many famous people buried in many of these small cemeteries.
Right.
And then it also it spurns an interest with somebody. Maybe they're a distant relation. Maybe they're a big fan of if they were an author, or if they were a movie star, or if they were a radio star. They would. We have to try to save these places, and it should generate interest, and you just take something like with these videos to spark the interest.
Right. Well, part of I mentioned to you, because one of my ideas for a little bit of a show or a segment of a show, even before we started the station, is something I was going to have. I was going to do like a vlog. It's going to be I Know Where the Bodies Are Buried, and it would be featuring famous people or noted Baltimoreans or local people, and you can say where you can go to see their graves. Like so and so is in Loudon Park, or it's not everything's not Greenmount Cemetery.
Right.
And in fact, there's a little cemetery where my grandmother used to live on Bel Air Road, and there's one across the street from where her house was, and it was like Bel Air and Moravia. It's not the big cemetery. It's a little one, and I think that's where Babe Ruth's mother is buried. And so it's things like that, whereas his father's in Loudon Park. So mom and dad are not in the same cemetery. But I mean, you can know that if people are interested, say, oh, John Surratt is buried in Baltimore, isn't he?
Cathedral, matter of fact.
Old Cathedral, is that what it's called? Old Cathedral Cemetery? Have you been there?
Right off there. I went down there and I gave a piece of my mind while I was there.
Have you seen John Surratt?
It's simple. It's a simple cross with just the word Surratt on it.
It just says Surratt, doesn't even say John. No.
And he escaped to let his mother hang. That was the worst part. But around the corner from him is the little Roman, as John McGraw used to play for the Baltimore Orioles, who was also managed the New York Giants
for many years.
And he's got the Roman type columns, and for his mausoleum, he's buried there.
He's buried here.
Many of them, they were Wilbert Robinson. Many of the old
Orioles. They're in this one particular cemetery
because they were all Catholics.
And where's this cemetery?
It's that's New Cathedral right there on Edmondson Avenue.
Oh, Edmondson Avenue. Okay, that's interesting.
Yep.
And then to get into your other interests.
Yes.
You are the founder of PRISMd.
Yeah.
Which stands for
the Paranormal Research and Investigation Society of Maryland.
Now, what got you interested in that and in paranormal activity?
Well, it started out, I had a few experiences myself.
Like?
For instance, I was deer hunting with my father on Eastern Shore, and they were something that they always told me about. Arthur's going to get you. Arthur's going to get you. It means arthritis. I would never wear gloves as cold as it was, because I want to feel what I've got to do. And there was an afternoon hunt. We could never hunt in tree stands because of the timber industry was down there. So we went out for an evening hunt. It was overcast. I remember going out, and we went along. We put our backs against this large oak tree. It was down there on the lower shore. It's a little town called Kingston, about 10 miles from about 10 miles or so from Crisfield. And so I got in there. I sat down in one area, and I was looking at this trail where deer were coming down, and my father was covering on another trail. And it looked like a 3-lane highway at this point. So whatever it was, I saw this light out of the corner of my eye that came down, looked like streaks of light coming down from the sun, breaking through. And then I looked over, and there was this fog started out. And the next thing you know, I saw it looked like a man with a 3-quart stovepipe hat, a goatee. He dressed like a Kentucky colonel, even with that bolo type tie. But I could only see down about just below his waist, and it was a stutter step, and it was going from behind this tree and would move out. So I was telling my father, looks like Dad, there's a guy in the woods, and he like, where is he? Where's that SOB? I'll try to keep it clean for the family.
That's okay, sure, of course.
So, I point out, I see he's about 20 yards out in front of you. I don't see the so and so.
Yeah.
So this thing, it kept moving out, but it made no sound. And I elbow him, and I said, he's right in front of you. He said, I don't see nothing. Well, at this point, I'm up there, and I'm poking myself, because it's just like, what is this? It's like something out of the Twilight Zone.
Right.
And, at that time, I was 14, and whether it is wild imagination or not, I wasn't drinking at the time, God's honest truth.
Okay.
And, but when this thing, it moved out, it stopped, and it turned its head and looked right at us. I said, he's standing right there looking at you. He said, I don't see anything.
Dad didn't see it.
My father didn't see it.
But you did.
But I did. And I'm looking right at this thing. When it looked at me, when I looked in his eyes, it was totally black. There was no whites to the eyes.
Whoa.
Which, then again, you get the cold chills down your spine.
Yeah.
And yet this time, like, he's right in front of you.
Oh, yeah.
And my father said, I can't see nothing. It's your imagination. And so with that, it turned its head slowly, looked back in the original direction, went behind this one tree. The mist dissipated and the lights went out.
Disappeared. Okay.
Come to find out, when I looked over in this other growth, we were actually over top of a slave cemetery, because down there they used rocks and stuff because of the high water tables. But there was a slave cemetery. It was underneath a patch of overgrowth, a couple hundred yards from where we were.
So at 14 or so, you became a believer.
Basically a believer, and then also was a big fan of Goober and the Ghost Chasers cartoon show.
Oh, okay.
And so friends of mine, we were known as occasional Ghost Chasers many years ago, and we would go up into Ilchester, a couple other places on our bikes, and we used to go to the Evanston Drive-In Flea Market and buy tape recorders, the old reel-to-reel,
right? And
also got old, like 110 or 126 cameras, and we saved up our money, and we wanted to go out there, and we read about the early EVPs up to the library, and also about other things, and we kind of like kept in touch over the years. And then finally, when I was questioning my own faith at the time after my father had passed, I started to delve into it more. And when I formed the current group, we originally was called the Kaysville Society for Paranormal Research, but there was also a group in Baltimore who went by Baltimore Society for Paranormal Research. I couldn't use Casper, and I couldn't try to be mixed up with that group there as well. So we had several other members who weren't from the Kaysville area, but also came in from other parts of Baltimore County and Howard County and Harford County, and we expanded out to where we are now the Paranormal Research and Investigation Society of Maryland.
And when was it founded?
We with the current group that we have right now is March of 2004.
Okay. And how many people are in the team?
Right now we have 16 members. Right now we have 8 core members, which goes out on investigations, and the others are when we have a larger location where we need to draw in, and if other members who can't show up that night because of either family issues or work details.
And those that want to be interested, they get trained, I assume.
Yes, what we do is we pretty much do it as what a police force would. I mean, basically, it's almost like a boot camp. I mean, and not so much as physical agility and things of that nature. But what we do is we use techniques, and we have a thing which is called deductive reasoning. What you do is you go through and you check for structural integrity on a building. You do. I have electricians. I have structural engineers. I actually have a physicist who's a member of the team.
Okay.
So they built some of our equipment. We go through the location. We check out everything from electrical to plumbing, HVAC, to rule everything out. We also have historians on the team that go back and they do pull up land records to find out if there was anything on the property before this building may have been built, or this building is tied in with something else. And then we also go through a series of questions with the clients themselves. When they contact us, they sign a non-disclosure agreement. We don't put anything out on the internet about the investigations unless they voluntarily want to put that out there. But we also ask them a series of questions whether they have, whether there's any drug use, or whether they have any type of mental disabilities and things of that nature, because you have to try and narrow things down as much as possible. And a lot of times, the people are going through stages of grief. And I know in my instance, we also do a little bit of grief counseling as well. My instance was after I lost my father. I was questioning my faith, and I swore I still heard his voice in the house and things like that. But there are other people who say, well, I smell my father's cigar smoke, or I smell my mother's perfume. And many of these people haven't really gone through the complete grieving process, and they need a little help here and there. And if there is something that's in there in the house, then we document as much as possible. And then if they need help, we know of people who can come in and do as far as blessing the houses or cleansing them, or actually do in certain cases where you might have to have an exorcism done.
Well, speaking of that, are you well aware of Bill Bean, the spiritual warrior?
Yes, I mean, he's a good friend of mine, and I've actually worked with him on several cases.
Oh, you have? Okay.
Yes, I have.
Now, we talk about a lot of people, in early 2000s, maybe it was starting to come into TV and all, because the one that comes to me most is Ghost Hunters was the most famous one, and there have been other TV shows.
Yes.
And a lot of people see this stuff and they're very skeptical, and they say, this isn't real, this is fake, but you take a scientific approach.
Yes.
Is that correct? And what kind of equipment do you use to measure and verify what you might find?
Well, we go even beyond what they show on TV.
So tell us what you do.
A lot of that we use electromagnetic field monitors. We go around, we check for all of the possibilities of stray electricity through the location. Maybe because it wasn't a wire wasn't grounded in a wall, can throw off a lot of EMF, which people who they may be susceptible to radiation poisoning, basically electromagnetic field wise. And also you go through and we use digital thermometers, but also we use regular thermometers. I mean, the old time with the old mercury, I still stand by with that. Hygrometers. We also measure ambient humidity. Also, we have another meter we use that goes with the phases of the moon, and also with the tidal changes, the high tide, low tide, things of that nature. Usually with a lot of energy we'll pick up when there's high humidity in the area, especially when you hear about cold, rainy night and a lot of the ghost stories. Well, a lot of that is partially true.
Also ionization.
Ionization because of that, because it's charging everything up. And we have digital voice recorders. We also still have the old cassette recorders, which we use to try to capture EVPs. And simply just like you and I talking right now, and you'll have a third person come in there, like we had one location in Crownsville many years ago at a private residence. And you hear this, we played it back, we had a group EVP session, and there was an old lady off in the distance. You could hear her as we only have one person ask while everyone's in the room to be accounted for. And you hear this lady in there, and it comes back and says, "I'm laying down." And it just like we just disturbed her sleep, whatever it was, But that's it just reaffirmed what the client was experiencing. We also have
cameras.
With the digital cameras which we use. We have some that shoot in full spectrum or in infrared, and also with ultraviolet.
Oh wow!
We also use night vision cameras, which we have a base station which we use at Command Central. and we have one person that's there, and with our walkie-talkies, we direct the groups who are within those different sections of the building to go to those locations where something may have fallen in front of the camera, or we heard through with our microphone system picking that up.
Right, and you would say, from 14 till now, you say you do believe in the existence of entities.
At this point, I consider myself an open-minded skeptic.
You're an open-minded skeptic.
Open-minded skeptic, if you look at it that way.
Okay, expand on that.
Well, I've
heard you use that term before.
What that is I'm open to anything that's out there. I mean, there's many things you can't explain. I've seen things, especially with the investigation we did in Crownsville many years ago, and we caught a full-body shadow figure coming in on camera when we blocked everything out with black fabric cover. Rule out any kind of exterior lights coming into the room, and also covering up a shiny object within the room. And also, when we have the camera placed, and we position it where anyone who comes into that room, they're going to be on camera. You can't get behind it. There's no way around trying to manipulate anything. 20 minutes after the shadow figure appears, excuse me, we had a partial apparition that actually flew in and came right towards the camera.
Wow.
So that right there, and it reaffirmed what the client had said. And when we turned it once we compiled all the data that we collected, and we presented the evidence to her, sadly she passed away about a month after we turned the evidence over to her. But that right there, it does prove it to you. Right. But there's some things that I can't say one way or another, but this is right here. I knew we had it. We finally captured something.
Well, I was going to say, too, that have you ever used psychics or in the form of kind of a seance where somebody tries to summon spirits?
No, that's one thing we don't do.
You don't do that?
We don't do that. That's a big no-no. Very much like Ouija boards. Although I know people who do that, but we don't do that with investigations. What we are is we're fact finders. We go in, basically, it's like Jack Webb used to do on Dragnet, just a facts man. Go in there and you want to cut and be as scientific as possible. And luckily we have a scientist who built some of our equipment on the team, and he built our DVR system that we use. And once we go in there and we do all this, we have other people who actually overlook once we gather everything. And we weed everything out, and here's the final data that we collected. It shows what we captured. We actually show it to other people. That way we have other opinions. What do you think this is? So that way you keep everything honest. But a lot of other teams, they don't go that extra mile. And we try to go the distance and then some.
Well, in doing that, are you also part of a national organization or a national kind of, I don't know, group of, or fraternity, we might say, of paranormal investigators?
There are some people that are out there that are part of, they call the TAPS family. It was the
Jason Hawes.
Jason Hawes, TAPS.
Yeah.
And we're not part of that.
You're not.
You have one group that's with the Jason Hawes type group there, and it might be a TAPS family member. And then you have the other ones who are with Zach Bagans and the Ghost Adventures crew.
Okay.
And want to be part of that. We're strictly independent.
You're independent.
We're independent of
either one of those groups of people.
We have many people who have gotten many years under the belt, went out there and done the investigations. They just tried and true going out there and taking just a simple camera taking photographs or a voice recorder. And but a lot of problems you have is there's a lot of egos in this field, just like with anything else.
Right.
I mean, stamp collecting, you have people like that. I see that with coin shows. I mean, but a lot of this, there are people who do it as a hobby. There are people who do it because they want to further their interest in maybe reaffirming their belief in the hereafter. Ours is a passion. You have to have the gut instinct to try to get into it. Anyone can get into it. It's just a matter of how far you want to be able to learn from the tried and true aspects of people who've been doing this for many years.
Right. Now, you mentioned one other time something about demonic entities. And have you come across anything you would call the demonic entities and how you deal with those?
Well, the one case that we did many years ago actually went up as and it turned into an episode of The Haunted for Animal Planet years ago. It was called Stalked by a Vampire, and we were involved in that one there. It was a case out of Broadneck, which is down near Annapolis, and the client actually graduated with the brother of my wife, and she contacted us. And make a long story short, they were saying, well, that there was a demonic entity or some type of evil spirit there that was attacking her two youngest children. Come to find out that was actually a jinn case, and jinn is where Genie Abal comes from. It's D-J-I-N-N.
Okay.
And it's from Islamic folklore about where God created heaven and earth. He created angels and jinn.
Okay.
And when he created mankind, he wanted angels and jinn to serve mankind. The angels agreed to it. The jinn did not. They figured that they were superior to the humans and would not submit to the helping the humans. So basically, Iblis, who was the big poobah of the jinn, had disagreed with God, and he banished the jinn to a parallel universe. But they are allowed to test mankind, as in times of imminent peril and danger, whom do you place your trust? You're going to turn to God. So basically, they're allowing the jinn to be the practical jokers, and where some people will say, well, imps or leprechauns or something like that, but usually some people will say, some in the Islamic lore would say that's jinn. And they walk among us according to their lore. But this case that we had, we actually saw physical scratches on the client. And even with that, once the episode was done and we actually had that in the can, we shot over 120 hours of video that we submitted to the production company, not including going back in two more investigations of 24 hours for additional footage to see if we capture anything else, not including the audio and the photographs for this. But it's you come across with that, and that's when Bill Bean actually helped us out.
Oh, he did.
With the house
Because I say you've said that you turn that over to experts who deal with that sort of thing.
Once we collected the data and we come across with I actually have where I was sitting at Command Central where there's a split foyer, and there was a votive candle actually moved, and I actually have the video of the cat watching the candle move by itself. I was shoved down the staircase. I had something hit me, and when I brought my shirt up, you could see where something hit my shoulder blades and shoved me down while I was going out to retrieve a piece of equipment out of my vehicle.
A jinn.
And basically, it's a jinn just up there, just testing everything.
Would that be
out.
what people would also call poltergeist?
That with poltergeist, usually
they say they're kind of trickster ghosts.
It's kind of like that. It can be intertwined. I mean, there are different takes of different things with it. But with this case here, the way it was attached to the family and the way it was attached to, basically, it's focused on the mother, not so much as two children that was targeting. And also, it didn't help that you had a Satan worshiper who was actually renting out the basement sofa that she was sleeping on. Because later on, we actually brought back in. We were called in on numerous occasions and did all these investigations. And after Bill had done his cleansing, we had actually brought in an Anglican priest to do a full house exorcism and a blessing again. And that's when he found the sacrificial knife that they used during the satanic rituals. And found some other things. And of course, that renter was not there when we did the investigations, but she did find out when we did do the cleansing up there, and wasn't too happy, and she moved out afterwards.
Interesting. Now, have you ever got people, and from your investigations, I guess, that give what you do a bad name in that you have to debunk something because there are fakers out there saying, this is phenomena that they've either captured or that they faked either by a photograph or a recording? Have you ever done the opposite, which is not fine, but debunk somebody who's a fake?
What you do is you refute them. I mean, exactly. There was one case where I was a member of another team at the time when we assisted other groups. And this one actually was on an episode of Paranormal State that they actually did an episode there, and actually they refuted that lady. They had a property over in Parkville, and her episode. And basically, it was her roommate that she had that was actually creating this whole mystique. And they actually captured it on video, showing him coming out of a closet, hiding in a trash bag, and rearranging the furniture, and trying to stage everything. So you have people who try to do that. I mean, there are people who desperately seek attention, and usually when you do the preliminary interview, and you also have people, when I show up, I show up along with the case manager, our tech director, assistant tech director, and 2 investigators, and they'll go through, we separate everybody, and we go through and ask them the same set of questions as we rotate them around to see if anybody's going to be consistent with their stories. And the same thing too, you want to take and you're also doing base readings to find if there's anything that happens there. And especially with that one that was in Crownsville, stuff happened while we were there, and there was no doubt that there was something in that house.
Right.
So you have people who actually seen that for themselves, and you reaffirm what's already there.
Well, people, like you say, ask you to help with their families and with their homes. And I noticed on your website that all your investigations are free.
Totally free. Yes, it is.
They are free.
Yes,
now, are all of the paranormal investigation societies do free investigations, or is that standard, or not?
It should be a standard. I mean, for one thing, you're going into someone's private home. With us, we do basically we do a 3-hour investigation. We're taking 3 hours out of their lives to try to refute or reaffirm that may be their claim. And what we try to do is be as try to leave as little footprint as we possibly can when we do these investigations. But there are many other groups that are out there that may take donations. They'll say, well, they have a GoFundMe account, or they may have, well, we need to get this equipment, and maybe you could purchase this piece of equipment for us. We don't take a dime. I mean, we all have day jobs.
Right.
And we work, but also this is not a set science. But what you're trying to do is you're trying to help the people that are going through these situations.
Right.
And also with my Christian upbringing, you also have to look at it this way, that you're supposed to help your fellow man.
Right.
Help your brother.
Sure.
And this is the right thing to be able to do. There are others who do charge, and I'm not here to condemn or condone what they're doing, but I can say that on my team we won't charge as long as we're still around.
Well, that's good. And I mean, it's a public service.
Yes, it is.
Now, do you agree with some people who say a lot of times places are disturbed that have small children, and small children see things because small children seem to be more sensitive, they say, or close to spirits?
They're more open because they haven't developed that blocker, because
like your father.
Your father,
Your father.
My dad would be up there. He would. It's just that out there. It's all figment. It's a figment of your imagination. You're letting your imagination run wild. Oh, you're seeing things. You sure you spoke of dope? No, I don't touch that stuff. But but it's one of those things that when you have your father up there saying that you're full of it. I mean, come on now, but at that time you don't have that blocker.
Right, because you were younger.
And as you get older, when they keep saying, stop seeing your pretend friend, it doesn't exist. Well, that pretend friend may be someone who passed.
That's true.
And but also people that believe that they have guardian angels as well, which may be deceased family members. They're overseeing them.
Right. There's a woman here who, like I said, was a psychic, and she talked about she first knew she had the gift when she was a small child living in Italy, and she had this little playmate, this little boy that she played with, and he turned out that he had been somebody who had passed on. She was the only one that ever saw him, because she was a little girl at the time, see, herself.
Mm-hmm. It's just like out there, we actually did an investigation of the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum in West Virginia, and there's a section there where a little girl had died out there, and as you take candy out there or toys, and sure enough, the candy's gone out of the wrapper, and no one's been in the room.
Interesting.
And which has actually happened on several occasions. Didn't happen when we were there, but we were mainly in the Civil War wing, where some of the more violent patients were, and where we focused on for that experiment. But
right. And do you believe that some people are more sensitive to the paranormal?
I feel that there is. There's also certain ethnic groups that actually is more open to it than others.
Really? Like what ethnic groups would you say are more open?
Well, those I would say would be the Native Americans. I mean, they believe, they have sweat lodges,
spirits,
the spirits in
world.
the spirit world, and I'm of Cherokee and Blackfoot descent myself. Okay. And it's more metaphysical type of thing. You have people who are from the Celtic region of Ireland and Scotland and that. Sure. And with the Druids, I mean, were all in tune with the nature as well.
Right.
then also you go over into Germany or some of the Nordic. With that, they were with Odin, and they were in tune with nature and delving with spirits and that.
Sure.
And sport, especially with you have over there with many Islamic countries, dealing with the jinn,
the jinn,
and doing different things like that. With the Chinese, and they count on their ancestors, and they would use certain drugs to actually heighten their experiences and such.
Right.
And with the ancient Chinese medicine, they feel that the spirits are coming in and helping their guiding hand to heal people. There's many stories all over.
Right.
And but it's really interesting to be able to hear from many of the people themselves that have gone that path, or when you have actual research that people have done and documented cases.
Now, when you did an interview 5 years ago, you told a story I thought was pretty interesting. I think you were up at Gettysburg, which a lot of people feel is one of the most haunted places in America. And you mentioned the story that you weren't there at the time to really investigate ghosts of soldiers or entities of soldiers, but something about an 1858 smallpox epidemic.
Yes.
You were in a cemetery?
Mm-hmm. I was up there at Evergreen Cemetery, and that's the cemetery where J.A. Wadesbury. She was the lone civilian that was killed during the Battle of Gettysburg.
Right.
I had gotten permission from the cemetery managers at the time. I would do a lot of photography during nighttime, and also it was kind of a way of testing new equipment out. And we went up for camp over that weekend, and we did some things. And so while we were out, we went and I was allowed half-hour increments because of the police presence up there, and they're afraid of people breaking in, doing whatever.
Right. And
so I respected a lot of it, and I appreciate what they did for me. So we went into a section where it was a typhoid outbreak in 1858.
Okay.
And there was many people who died up there from typhoid fever, and so we got in this one section, and I was with these rows, and I decided to bring out. We had a K2 meter, which measures EMF, electromagnetic fields.
Right, okay.
And it's a way you can use as a communication with the yes and no questions. It'll light up when they get close. And we had a recorder which I placed on one of the headstones, and we had the taking photographs. And at that moment, we were just asking questions. We introduced ourselves. We're saying we're being respectful, because just like you and I have a conversation,
right,
we want to be respectful,
right.
And because you're coming into their home at this point, and it was going. We were checking the temperature. It was in front. I had a digital thermometer with me, and I would go it was in the upper 70s at night, in the 80s.
Okay.
And it would go 83, 56, 82, and it was like at a point of a sphere or a piece of slice, a cold spot, and the temperature kept dropping.
Okay.
And it got down like in a negative series where it was registering on this.
Wow.
And so we had one of our members had on his watch. He set the time on his watch to go off exactly 30 minutes.
Okay.
Session would be over with.
Okay.
So we had the recorder going, and so this slice kept getting colder and colder at this tip. And even there, we actually had vibrations in the ground that actually happened while we were standing there.
Whoa.
And you would move it closer to a mausoleum there. It would dissipate, but when you move further away, it would pick back up again.
Wow. Okay.
Then all of a sudden, you hear the watch go off, and you hear Jim. It's time's up.
Okay.
I took a couple more pictures.
Okay.
And then I went over and I said that this is the end of the session, and I turned the recorder off.
Okay.
So we get in the truck. I go to get my truck. My truck's locked. I didn't lock it.
It was unlocked.
It was unlocked.
Okay.
I left the windows down. I had the keys in the ignition, but the doors and everything was unlocked when we left.
And now it's locked.
Now it's locked when we come back.
Okay.
And went with the eye shot of the truck to begin with.
Yeah.
So we go back to the campground. We get back and we start going through the photographs and on the looking at the little viewfinder, and we seen course, people say orbs, and it's more moisture because of the humidity out there, which will, in front of a strobe, especially in front of a camera flash, it'll illuminate. Also, another thing will create these little light anomalies will be escaping radon, because you always ever see by the naked eye, you'll see a little blip of light. It's not even during wintertime. It's not a lightning bug. It's definitely it's radon that's being escaped in the area, and this is all through the central region of Maryland. We're actually on top of decaying uranium.
When you see that in a still photograph.
And you see it in a still photograph.
Because, I mean, when you do sometimes video, people talk about, and I've seen it on TV, the orbs of light, but they move.
They move.
Yeah, and that way, and you catch it on video camera. I mean, did you have video going that night? Or
that night we didn't have video on that night. Wish we had of.
But you did have a still photograph.
And still photograph.
Did you capture something on that still photograph?
Yes, we did. Actually, when it corresponded, because we say out the time and the date, and when you close, just like when you open up your recordings, you always say the date, the time.
Right.
When you start, date and time when you finish, and at this point, as we go through the photograph, my wife went back there and she pulled it up and she says, "Let me see that photograph." And she went and she opened up even more, and it's you hear on the video, actually on the recording, as I'm asking all these questions, it was like we introduced ourselves, and it sounds like a woman that's coming in. Here's and it's like she's either gut shot, has labor pains, or she has terrible bowel movement, which would have happened with typhoid. Would have been that point, in the pain. But as it got colder, when I was calling up the temperature, and you hear on the recording, it got louder as it was getting colder. So this thing was coming towards us at that point. So when the time was over and it was time for us to pack it up, and you hear us, before I go over and shut the recorder off, you hear me take the final photographs. Well, that noise that was coming up there with that groaning, now it's going away from us.
Wow. Okay.
So at that point, when I took the final photograph, here it was a woman in a period dress from the mid-1800s. In the photograph, you could see the woman. You could see the woman, and you could see her hoop skirt and all walking away from us. And there was nobody there; it was just the three of us that was there that night.
And did you get a voice too?
The voice that was on there, it was her up there. It was groaning out that she was coming. And the one question I asked, I said, "What year is this?" Okay. And the woman's voice was 1863.
Wow!
But that didn't correspond to the actual question.
About in that 1858 epidemic,
with the epidemic,
which wouldn't have been somebody groaning because of dysentery or the epidemic.
And true, and also could that be Jenny Wade coming over and making her presence known? Because she was just over the hill from where we were
in the same cemetery?
In the same cemetery.
So do you think you may have captured
her voice of Jenny Wade?
Jenny Wade.
Jenny Wade.
The only civilian who died in the battles of Gettysburg. How can people find your stuff online, PRISM and the cemetery stuff?
Okay. With the Paranormal Research and Investigation Society of Maryland, PRISMd, you can go to www.prismd.net. If you go to YouTube, you look up the Bigg Jim Jones channel. That's Bigg Jim Jones channel.
1M.
1M, yeah, 1M with 2 G's. And you go on there, you can type in the Cemetery Chronicles, Lost Maryland, Explore Quest America, and put them on there as well. I'm also on Facebook under PRISMd Jim Jones, and also my main page is Jim Jones, which is in hiatus for 30 days for right now. Okay. But I'm also on Twitter and many other social media websites out there.
Perfect. You're everywhere.
I share my photography and the videos everywhere once everything's been done and completed. And hopefully everybody enjoys it, and hopefully everybody gets enthused by it to get behind many of these projects, and hopefully we can get some volunteers out there to help out these locations.
Terrific. And thank you for stopping by today,
Jim. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, folks, that's the end of another really fun and interesting Paul Stefan show. We hope you really like this one. We might have Jim back, or maybe even broadcast some of his phenomena. He can maybe bring some examples for us for another time. And so until the next time, this is Paul Stefan saying, be good out there.